Jeff DeForest, Michael Lubie. Lubitz, very happy to welcome this gentleman to the program. It's always great having a basketball conversation with him. And think about, how great this guy is that after throwing a Henry Finkel reference at him, he still volunteers to be in our program. Suggesting that you would have Hank Finkel shooting a three. We welcome Ron Rothstein, the coach, to the show. And, of course, doing a great job as a Heat analyst now in his most recent capacity with the team. Coach, how are you? I mean, we haven't had this feeling here since like 1969. I mean, this is a real Cinderella story. How are you, my friend?
First of all, I do question my sanity every time I say yes.
What a way to ruin a morning, yeah. Do you believe, Ron Rothstein, and obviously well-versed in coaching experience, that if Eric Spoelstra was an assistant on Red Klotz's staff, that the Generals might have gone 500 against the Globetrotters? Is he that good? Is he that good?
Well, that's, come on now, be fair. You got to be fair. Come on, man.
Who would fit the category, I guess? I don't know. Auerbach?
No one. Maybe Lubie, but not you.
The time.
Wake up with Defo. Welcome to the Defo Show.
And a very special good morning, everybody. Great to be with you on today's edition of the Defo Show. Jeff DeForest, Mike Lubie Lubitz, in what is utopian, euphoric times that are taking place here. I guess it would be 1R, euphoric, utopian times that are taking place here in South Florida on the South Florida sporting scene. We are the center, the epicenter of the sporting universe right now, writing all kinds of stories, dynamic stuff going on. FAU goes to the Final Four. Our man, Coach Larrañaga, Jim Larrañaga. Jim Larrañaga takes the University of Miami into the Final Four. We have two teams out of the four in there. We didn't win any games there, but nonetheless, it was just a phenomenal showing by South Florida college basketball franchises. And then we get 2 8th seeds. All of those people crying, those mealy-mouthed poor schmanks. I don't know if I want to make the playoffs. What's the point? We're just going to get blown out anyway. Which certainly appeared like a strong and distinct possibility, right? Both fronts. Milwaukee going to blow away the Miami Heat. The Heat barely surviving their game against Chicago, losing to the Atlanta Hawks, and that hair challenged Trae Young and the rest of that cast. A team that was in total disarray, as dysfunctional as the Mayweather family. And they knock off the Heat. The Heat fall into a category of infamy where they were on the threshold, a precipice of becoming the first team ever to have qualified in one of the top 8 spots to not make the postseason in the NBA. Because when they came up with this play-in tournament concept, nobody ever made it from the play-in positions from 9 and 10. Nobody ever made it to the postseason. Hadn't happened yet. Now, it's a brief history. It was only 4 years of this. Was this the 4th year of it? I'm not sure, Libby. That's a little hard to keep track of. Well, we don't know all the details, but we know this, that it was an embarrassment if the Heat got knocked out of the postseason there. They played the Chicago Bulls, who had frantically won their previous game, and they're sitting there in a virtual dead heat with about 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and you can hear the rumblings all around town, Louis. Yeah, what's the point, man? We're going to get blown out by Milwaukee. We have contended all along, although you don't subscribe to this theory as strongly as I do, Louis, that if you have a possibility to make the postseason, I don't care how negative it looks, how lopsided the task might appear to be on paper, you always have to feel, if you're playing sports at any level, you always have to feel, no matter what the circumstance, that you still have a chance to win. Do you agree with that, at least, Mike Lubie-Lubitz?
Look, I mean, the NBA, we think it to be rare that the upset happened because it's a series. So
it's Chalk City also in the NBA. We know that for the most part.
The better team usually wins out. You have 7 games. When it was 5-game series, you had a shot at some upsets, and they tried to weed out the upsets, to be honest, in the Shaq era, because they wanted the cream rising to the top. But as the series shown, even in the NBA, and there's enough talent spread out throughout the league these days that a Trae Young 1 year can take a Hawks to the conference finals. A Luka Doncic can take a Mavs to the conference finals. Like, when you have these superstars when they go off, it doesn't matter who is on the other team. Like the way that the league legislates defense, you're not going to have a Jordan or a Hakeem just take over defensively. Like they're going to make sure they get to the free throw line. They're going to make sure they get their points. And the underdog has a shot now. And that's something that you're 100% right about, and something a lot of Heat fans like myself sort of disregarded, that this franchise has shown. Look, the year in the bubble, this reminds me not of last year when they made it to the conference finals. This reminds me of the bubble. Because remember, they were not good that year, and people had written them off.
Yeah.
And Butler had just gotten here, and Butler couldn't be a number one. And then right before the playoffs, they started playing better, and people around the league didn't realize that. And then the bubble came, and everyone else hated the bubble, and everyone else wanted to get out. The Heat were like, all right, cool. Butler's like,
they loved it, yeah.
Basketball. And everyone else was like, sure. Hero and Bam were young. They're like, yeah, that guy likes basketball. So do I. So they like became this weird group and just plotted through. And that's what this playoff run feels like, is the world is against them, but they are the one team, the one group that believes in themselves.
There were, some actual, tangible intangibles, if you will, in the bubble. Does that make any sense? Bonnie will be correcting me on that. She was always editing
Editor.
all of that ridiculous copy that Mayo would turn in at the Sun Sentinel. I would imagine Mayo was pretty particular about, the way Sarney, right? He would be very precise. I don't know that you had to make a lot of changes to their copy. Me, it was a whole nother thing, where, the editor would look at me and just go, what the hell is this? You want me to print this? But when I was at the Ontario Daily Distort, where the motto was yesterday's news tomorrow, they didn't really do a whole lot of editing. Whatever you threw in there, you could have written some threatening terrorist message, and it would have been published. It probably would have got by all of the editing screening and made its way into the paper. They have to have a lot of faith in the people that were on their staff. But yeah, I mean, when you look at what was happening with this Miami Heat team, the intangible, the tangible intangible was that the Heat in the bubble didn't have to deal with any kind of home court situation. So even though they were coming from a position where they might have faced some difficulties in that regard, all of a sudden, they're in Florida. I don't know that it mattered. I guess, there were such restrictions on the players that they really couldn't do much except go back and forth to the hotel. And I'm not sure exactly how the bubble worked. I remember Scoop Skolnick saying he got kicked out of the bubble because unbeknownst to him, he had COVID. And he rolled in there. And at that time, remember, just the stigma, and it was true, unfortunately, that was attached to COVID was, it could be, and this, this happened when HIV first surfaced, that, if you even came near sniffing having it, it could potentially be a death sentence, and in all likelihood, what was going to lead to, very serious consequences. So here's Scoop. He shows up there, and he wants to cover the Heat in the championship round. And I believe it might have been right at the beginning of him formulating 5 Reasons Sports Network. And he rolls up to the bubble there, and they tell him, hey, go away. So I don't know exactly how that worked. I mean, it wasn't like they were under one big, giant roof. But, yeah, I mean, the Heat did relish that situation. And I believe they benefited the most from the teams that were in there. That they would not have had home court advantage. In a couple of those series, and it might have made a big bit of a difference. I don't know. Do you buy that at all, Lubie? The fact that there was no crowd probably was beneficial to the Miami Heat, as opposed to having to play a potential Game 7 in a series in Milwaukee or wherever else they would have had to go. But and a lot of people looked at that as a fluke that season. And the Heat, even though, I mean, it's funny too, because they were the number 1 seed last year.
Yes,
Out of the East, and they look great. I mean, they could shoot the three. They had a variety of people that could make contributions. They may have been somewhat nondescript. I don't know if Max Strus comes up to you and says, aside from the fact that he's tall, that, you know what, I'm an NBA player with a team that's in the second round of the postseason. You'd say, yeah, sure, Max. And I'm Barnaby Jones. I mean, what the fuck do I look like? Some of the other guys, may fit the bill. They look like basketball players. Not that Strus doesn't. I guess if Cody Zeller told you that he was playing in the NBA, you would doubt that he was even in the 40 and over league that we've discussed many times at the David Posnack Jewish Center, where I think I averaged 32 points a game. No, that was 30 and over, something like that. That's when I had some game. But I was doing a lot of cherry picking, Louie. And you had to deal with you talk about bizarre officiating in the NBA. Try being in a recreational league.
Oh God, it's the
where the
worst.
calls make zero sense. I mean, they're in open defiance of anything that you would ever find in
That's
any
right.
rule book, going all the way back to Naismith, where you get fouled in the act of shooting, but they put you on the line, but don't award the basket. Like, how is that possible? If I was fouled in the act of the shooting and the ball went in, how can you discount the basket? No basket. 3 seconds is their big call, which they don't call in the NBA, by the way. You can be in the paint there for an hour and a half.
For like an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take as long for an Earl-Scheib paint job to dry as it does for some of these guys to make their moves under the basket before they finally go up on the fourth fake, and or after 4 fakes and go up and put one in. You're thinking, is anybody counting here? Does anybody know how to count to 3? Get me a WWE referee. Bump, bump. And then they always stop the count. But nonetheless, I mean, I don't know that officiating that was overwhelmingly influential in the game last night. I don't think so. Nobody's complaining for some reason when the home team wins. I don't know. Did you notice any atrocities there?
I think it was bad.
You were screaming after the Foster game there in New York.
Well, that was because the last 7 minutes felt very one-sided. Last night was just bad both ways. If you were the Knicks, you weren't happy at some of the Randall fouls, which I think they were all fouls, but they were ticky-tack, and he fouled out on an offensive foul, and you don't ever want that in a playoff game. Hart fouled out. Brunson was in foul trouble. Like, if you're the Knicks, you're not happy that 3 dudes are in foul trouble. But again, the Heat, outside of the 10 to 12 bricks from three-point line, were actually pretty aggressive last night. So when you're at home and you're aggressive, you'll get calls. And the other way, I was a little frustrated. The flake, they called I understand this landing zone thing.
Yeah.
But if the guy's standing next to you, so you're telling me the defender not only can't stand in front of you, can't stand next to you either?
It's an overreaction to that Jaja Pachula closeout on Kawhi Leonard. I mean, that wasn't even that bad. It was just unfortunate that Kawhi Leonard ended up landing on the guy's foot. And, Popovich is still famous for that quote. And, I'm blanking on the name. Our friend who passed away with COVID, speaking of COVID, that worked for the NBA. Yeah, Sekou Smith. Yeah. That was a shocker when that guy checked out. I mean, wow, we had just spoken to him, huh?
Had him on
You discovered Sekou Smith, actually, as a source, for conversation about the NBA. And then he became sort of, a very prominent member of the NBA TV crew and a very well-respected. I mean, the people who are paying tribute. I think Obama might have sent a message. Expressing condolences about his passing. But he was the guy that asked Popovich, the question about, I guess, how much of a difference did it make, with Kawhi Leonard going out? And Popovich went off on that famous rant.
Yep.
Where he says, you're asking me how I feel about this? And he went crazy. He did like a Tommy Lasorda thing. It was fantastic.
Yep.
And we didn't realize that, right? Remember, we were just goofing around about that. And Sekou said, yeah, that was me. I asked the question. I don't like asking press conference questions. Do you, Lubie? I never ask one. Do you? I don't know that I ever had. I mean, maybe once. I really wanted to address something specifically and ask a question, which was quickly brushed off as being meaningless. We could talk about that another time, DeForest. I'm not big on that. And some people really love it. I mean, Ira Winderman, I guess, would be the Helen Thomas. Ira Winderman of the Sun Sentinel of Spoelstra press conferences, post-game press conferences. And they get into deep Nietzsche-like philosophical questions. Which I don't know that, the game. Do you find that the game is as existential as coaches and some reporters would have you believe? Because, I mean, essentially, right, you bounce the ball up and down. You try to avoid contact where it's going to be detrimental to your shot going in. And, you put the ball in a basket, right? Put the biscuit in the basket.
Yes.
That's what you have to do. I'm not sure how scientific it is, where you're getting into all kinds of Platonic stuff about basketball. But what was clear last night, I think, and it was evidenced by the previous game as well, is that the Knicks just aren't that good. We're okay during the regular season, weren't great. The Cleveland series, I didn't see a lot of Knicks Cleveland, so I don't know what happened there, but it looked like there was a big disparity between the two teams.
It looked like this. Like the Knicks 3 guys will do something and everyone else was in. And the Cavs are just not ready. The Cavs looked young. That was my thing. I'm like, the Knicks is great. I'm like, that's not like, and I wasn't trying to look. I grew up hating the Knicks, so there's a bias there, fine. But I can watch a series and see, look, this team's playing well, this team's not. I don't
Yeah.
like the Lakers with LeBron. They're dominating the Warriors. They're playing defense in a way they haven't played since the bubble, and they made the exact trades the Heat were thirsting to make, and they were able to complete them. And Achimura and Russell that have really changed their team.
Yes.
I have to admit it. Like, I can hate a team and still say admit it. Like, I was watching the Knicks and I'm like, look, it's a national thing that we want the Knicks to be good. So it's like with this series, this whole series has been from the purview of the Knicks, even though the Heat have been the better team. And I'm watching the series and I'm going, no, the Cavs are getting open shots. They can't hit the side of a fucking barn. Like, Darius Garland, who is an all-star caliber point guard, was absent. Evan Mobley, who's one of the better young big men, who's a super talent, looked like a guy who's 20. Like, he did nothing. And I was like, I don't understand it. Like, the Cavs, the Jared Allen dude that came from the Nets had become an all-star big, and he was a really good player all year. Did not. I was like, and the Knicks took advantage, and that's what you're supposed to do. But it wasn't like they were imposing their will. It was like the Bucks Heat series and the Knicks, like, didn't look the same to me. The Bucks Heat looked two teams that were matched, and the Heat just in the end gutted it out. The Knicks Cavs, it was like the Knicks are there, and the Cavs don't look ready. They just don't look ready.
No, they were very flat in that series. I mean, they lose it in 5 to a Knicks team that, as we see, I mean, are they spectacular? Far from it. I mean, it's not like they're terrible. The Heat have found a way to find answers to, offset whatever it is that the Knicks do well, and have enough firepower, and they're getting it from sources that you would have thought you would have been happy to see shipped off the roster before the season even ended, like Kyle Lowry. I mean, what was the conversation about Kyle Lowry towards the second half of the season, or all throughout the second half of the season? It's like, what can we do to get rid of this guy? This was the Shaqquisition in reverse, which was still, in my estimation, Pat Riley's greatest front office move, unloading a bloated Shaq with 3 years left on a $100 million contract, which today would be mashed potatoes by comparison to what it was at the time, which was monumental, $20 million a year for an aging bloated Shaq. You get your championship, although at the moment of truth, even in that championship run, without the bailout from Alonzo Mourning, I mean, a guy who had health problems that were right up there, parallel to the English patient. And, by basketball standards, right, this guy's coming back from like a kidney transplant, for God's sake. And, he comes in and relieves Shaq and was a vital force and component in that year's championship with Dwayne Wade. So they unload Shaq. And, you would have thought that this would have been maybe second only to that if you could finally get rid of Kyle Lowry. I don't know. What does he have? One more year left on his Heat contract?
Yeah.
So not the end of the world, but you wouldn't have wanted this guy around because you're thinking you would be better off with the Dragon coming back, Goran Dragic, than this guy. Kyle Lowry looked to be a complete stiff.
Yeah, he wasn't playing because of injury, or when he played, he was But, like, that's the thing. Coming into this series, the Knicks.
He looked like he'd been on the Mayo dining circuit. Actually.
Yes, he put on weight. Yeah. He was not healthy, and he wasn't getting healthy, like at any point in the year.
Yeah. You would expect him to show up at the table next to Mayo at Carbone.
When Love, I mean, they pulled out of nowhere, and Love's had a lot of but he has hit some threes, and he's gotten some rebounds, which has been big for them. Like, I don't know, like, just the tenor was all Knicks, and I was like, look, I'm not saying the Knicks aren't good. I just don't know if they're what these people are saying.
You hate the Knicks, though. That's true.
I do hate the Knicks, but I'll give them credit.
And you hate Knicks fans. And, this is what's great about you is we have, like the typical fan that at most sports talk shows would point to as being, almost borderline criminally insane. And, it's okay. See, now I grew up a Knicks fan, but I don't have the same Knicks fandom, much like was the case, I mean, Kim Bokamper used to ride me all the time, about being a Jet fan. But I couldn't help growing up and being a Jet fan. In fact, it was kind of radical to be a Jet fan because most people in New York like the long-established and more traditional New York Giants. And, you had, a lot of Giant fans there, and the Jets were nothing. They were a carnival team when I started rooting for them. In the old AFL, when they had Mike Tolliver throwing the ball, and they were horrible. The best attraction was Chief Wahoo McDaniel, who you knew more from his professional wrestling exploits than you did as a middle linebacker for a professional football team in New York. Crazy, right? They got a guy that's got a headdress when he comes out there. Incredible. I mean, it was a carnival. And then the AFL started to establish some credibility, obviously. I mean, we all know the history. Do I need to go through that, Lubie? Do I have to go all the way back to 1969, Lubie? Is that what you want me to do? No.
I'm not asking you to do that. I
But,
don't.
but yeah, I mean, you couldn't help but being a Jet fan. If you were a Jet fan at the time, the fact that they won Super Bowl III, I mean, look, you're never going to forget that if you were a Jet fan growing up. But after 42 years here and 8 years prior to that in Los Angeles, do I have the same affinity for these New York teams? No. If the Knicks are playing the Heat, I'm rooting for the Heat because it gives us more to talk about here. And I do believe now I've had a little bit of an epiphany, and it's hard for me to accept this, having come from long time talk radio backgrounds, where you're selling negativity. I mean, look, you were the perfect guy for this kind of work. Because even if your team won the championship, you were pissed that they weren't ready for the draft next year. I mean,
That's the only time I don't bitch. I bitch up until winning the title. I will openly admit that. Yes.
you're like a woman, and a man right before they're getting divorced, where no matter what you do, it's considered negative. You always will find the negative thing. Yeah, well, you know what? You didn't mean that when you said that to me at dinner the other night. So, yeah, I meant it. What I really meant to say, as I was telling you I love you, was I can't wait till the gavel comes down on this paperwork. Right? And that'll be it. Sayonara. Exit visas, my friend. But yeah, I mean, I believe now, maybe Dave Hine is right that, if you're going to win a championship, that run is the best for stimulating conversation in the sports talk business. No?
I mean, the Heat dynasty, I guess, call it whatever you want, that 4-year run, built careers.
Yes.
Like Ethan Skolnick was a guy we knew. He became a national presence. Brian Windhorst was a guy
Windhorst,
that we had on from the Cleveland.
Well, by the way, I mean, Windhorst, you might want to push away from the table a little bit. He was on that Get Up the other morning there, and they had him standing up next to Greenberg, and it looked like he literally was like 5 times the size of Greenberg, and he was wearing these like schlepper fat pants. And you're thinking, come on, Windhorst. I mean, you at least make some attempt to preserve your life. Come on.
He's made no effort.
He's got it pretty good.
No effort. He's made none.
He's got one of those, those coats that they give you when you go to a restaurant, and it's a jacket required. You don't see this much anymore, but and you didn't realize that. So the guy has like an assortment of really ill-fitting jackets that they can give you at the desk of the maitre d'. And you'll just put one on, and you look like a complete schlep. But yeah, that was Windhorst. Does he know what he's talking about? Did we ever figure that out? We had him on the show. He came across very well, did he not? For all of the exploitation we've done of Brian Windhorst's appearance, and the fact that a guy made a career out of chasing LeBron James around, and came out of nowhere, right, to become one of the more prominent basketball authorities. So at least ESPN would have you believe that. But then again, they're trying to sell us Chris Perkins. Or Kendrick Perkins, as Chris Perkins is our guy. Kendrick Perkins as an expert. Nice. It really is weird, some of the people that they have up there. I guess Tannenbaum would be the most outrageous example. And then the fact that David Sampson has been podcasting on various platforms, including now, I think he's one of the Lebitard umbrella guys.
He's come on fire because he called out South Florida fans, and on the show, I'll give them at least credit. They have him on for years, but they let their guys go after him, and their guys are big Miami fans. I don't know who one of them was like. I saw this on Twitter. One of them called him out. I was like, what are you talking about, Miami fans? You are half the reason our fans suck. Like, literally, when we started to believe in the goddamn Marlins, you pulled the rug out from underneath us. What are you talking about? Like, like South Florida fans. They're like, it's people like you that literally get our hopes up and then dash them. Like, you're a scumbag.
Oh yeah, no, the most despicable of characters. And supposedly, I've had people tell me, yeah, no, the guy's a really nice guy, whatever. But for this swindle that they pulled off here in the city of Miami, I mean, the greatest Ponzi scheme ever.
One they never tried.
Was Lauria and Sampson getting this stadium built and then having that as an asset that they could use to bolster the value of a worthless franchise and sell it to this guy, Bruce Sherman, who is the majority owner. Who are the minority owners? Do we even know? Or does he own the whole shindig?
Oh no, he's
For like 1.2 billion that they sold this franchise for? You got to be kidding me.
Well, they never made a gallop. Look, the 1 year they put money into it, halfway through, they're like, "Oh, it's not working," and they sold off. Like, what?
Well, Heath Bell had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, Heath Bell and Jose Reyes, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like,
Imagine that. Yeah, Laurie was in love with Jose Reyes, who was
Padres
finished.
are all in, and it's not working out. They're not like, "Oh, darn it, let's go back to not giving a shit." Like, come on. Like, you had sold off. You got to the moment where you're supposed to spend money. You spent money for 3 months. You had a whole season to still turn it around, and then you got rid of everyone and never tried again. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, they could have signed Chico Cardenas instead of Jose Reyes. They would have done just as well.
Double down, keep going. Like, you had gotten your stadium, you had sold off. Like, real owners don't do that. Look at it. As much as Harrison doesn't go over the luxury tax anymore, which is a factor in why the Heat sort of hit the doldrums this year, because they weren't able to go and get those pieces like the Lakers were able to, because they wouldn't go over the tax.
Crew's business is down, my friend.
But they still are always at least competitive, and he's always at least giving them a free reign to do what they really, really, really need to do. Like, they weren't doing that.
No.
Like, Samson's a scumbag.
No, they did everything that you could do to alienate the entire audience from having any desire whatsoever. I mean, the people that retained their interest in the Marlins, were really dedicated diehard fans at that point, because you couldn't have done any more to distance people. And then it got worse actually, because the franchise, I mean, as despicable as it seemed that Laurie and Sampson were, at least there were some links to the community, and the baseball world that you could appreciate, and you could kind of shrug your shoulders and say, okay, well, the owner's a dickhead, but I really love Jeff Conine or whatever. Then Jeter came in here and just pulled the rug out from even under that. When you talk about trying to change the culture of a team, he changed it into having zero culture whatsoever. The only culture they had, I mean, it was like the culture you find in a yogurt that was in the back of the fridge for
in the lab
6 years that Louis Pasteur wouldn't touch with a pair of forceps. Unbelievable. But anyway, I mean, the fans here are fine. Once they have a winner, I have not seen this momentum really build to the level that it did. Maybe I'm just detached from this, not quite as involved as I used to be. But the Heat Panther run of the late '90s, in terms of and perhaps this city has become even more diversified than ever. Is that possible? South Florida as an entity, we're not even a city. We don't even know what to call ourselves. Are we Miami? Are we Fort Lauderdale? Are we South Florida?
I call it South Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, Fort Lauderdale's become a big enough deal, and West Palm, as Mayo would attest to, has become an actual location. And we all, like, you don't just spend time here or there. Like, it feels like what Houston is. Houston's this big ass area, and they call this Houston, and they call that Houston, and they call that Houston. And you're like, we're still in Houston? I've been driving for 40 minutes.
And everything is named for what did Sam Houston do to distinguish himself? Everything is Sam Houston. I told you, I got, and you know this for a fact, because I disappeared for a long time.
Oh, I was freaking out.
I got an Uber. I said, take me to Sam Houston. And, I ended up at the library instead of the track. I was like, no, I'm not here to read a book. I want to find a racing form. Well, Sam Houston, it's a racetrack. He goes, no, everything is Sam Houston here. I'm like, what the fuck? You just drove 60 miles on my dime to tell me that? And now I'm going to miss the double?
I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, hours later.
Yeah, hours later, yeah. Yeah, I got here, Lubie.
I was like, where the hell? What's going on?
It's an inherent trust of cab drivers and Uber drivers, where, maybe you shouldn't have that kind of level of faith. Although, and you were saying that the Knicks fans had that kind of faith in their team. There's a lot of false hope being sold there over the years. So, when that happens, you tend to overreact to anything good that takes place. But, the way they handled the Cleveland Cavaliers, you would have thought, okay, good, that this team is, ready and all, dusted up and ready for the playoffs, the next round. But they've really shown little or nothing in this series against the Heat. That would be impressive to me. I don't know. What are they doing that's so great? They barely got out of that second game. They lost the first game at Madison Square Garden, immediately coughed up home court advantage. The Heat play well at home, so you're thinking, it's somewhat prohibitive even though they didn't play their best basketball. But you were thinking the Heat are in a solid position to hold serve on all three of their home games. So and that probably is going to be the way the series goes. No,
That's what it feels like. I mean, look,
but you really have a freebie up there in New York coming up.
you would think the Knicks are going to do some. Look, they played better last night. They kept the game close. The Heat had chances to pull away, and I was desperately frustrated that they couldn't do that because Brunson. I don't know where this came from.
Do you hold a brick in your hand when you're watching a game? Ready to fire it at the screen?
I'm not violent. I just frustrated. I don't want to break things.
You could have handed one to Robinson. Yeah, yesterday also. He looked like he had a brick in his hand. I mean, I don't know. It's an amazing story all the way around. And then, of course, we haven't gotten to the Cats yet, which we will in just a few minutes. And then later on, we're going to talk some buckets with Sean Deveney, one of our favorites, heavy.com, and does a great job covering the NBA. Really well-versed in all of the things that we put in front of him. And Jessica Blaylock, who was late scratch yesterday on the program, works for Bally Sports Florida and covers both the Panthers and the Marlins. I think she had the scratch yesterday because Sunday she was doing both. No, is that possible, Lubie? What'd she tell us? She had like a 13-hour workday the day before, and was doing the Panther game on Sunday, and then had to do something with the Marlins as well. But nonetheless, Jessica has vowed to join us today. Maybe she'll regret that commitment, but 8:45 later on today on the program. We'll get into the Cats a little more heavily here because. They sit in a dynamite position. That's unfortunate, Lubie. This will be the second time now. You had to keep an eye on two games at the same time.
Why not give the Heat Knicks an extra day? Like, I don't know. I'm so confused. Why did the Panthers?
I mean, look, arena scheduling. What is a circus coming to town, Madison Square Garden? I guess it is a circus up there at all times. Maybe they got a Trinidad fight. What's happening at the Garden?
It would be perfect to have the Panthers and then tomorrow Heat Knicks. Like I don't understand it at all. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, especially since they had a long gap between games 2 and 3. All of a sudden now they're playing every other night, which I prefer that. But
fine, but
yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, you would have to imagine the Knicks will be slight favorites in that game at Madison Square Garden.
I mean, look, the Knicks played better last night. The Knicks did get a win at home. Game 1, it wasn't a rout. You would think the Knicks would find a way to keep the series alive. And then the Heat would close up in game 6. But I don't know. I'm so confused by this Heat team. Like, I could have sworn they were playing horrendous in the second half. And they kept the lead they lost the lead once and it got down to 2. But they kept a 5 to 8 point lead for most of the second half. Yeah. And they couldn't hit the side of a fucking barn. Like, for Julian's not wrong. The Knicks couldn't shoot, I guess. The Heat were worse. Like, the Knicks were at least defended threes that they were missing. The Heat were wide open.
They have horrific shooting percentages. Yeah.
Wide open, and they were like fucking airballing it. Like Gabe Vincent was airballing wide open threes. I'm like, how the fuck does that? I'm like, what?
See, this is the mode that we like you in, Lubie, where you end up going peshy on the show, and this is after having like 12 hours to recover or so, and get your mind, focused on what would be appropriate in terms of a professional broadcast. All right, we're coming back with more in a moment. We'll talk about the Panther series. The other series, the Lakers. I was telling Lubie, we've been saying it all season. So nobody could say that we weren't onto this theme. And it wasn't like I was expressing it facetiously or just thinking, sometimes a guy will throw something out there and he doesn't really believe it, like Tucker Carlson does with the news, right? But, you're thinking, okay, if it does come to fruition, then I look like a genius. But I really felt this. I thought the Lakers would be a force, even though everybody likes to dump on the Lakers. And for obvious reasons, the Lakers get so much overwhelming coverage and attention. And LeBron James, you would find in a lot of sports, on almost any sports station, that for the last, more than 20 years that he's been in the league, going back to maybe when Windhorst was stuffing donuts in his face as he was following LeBron James around his high school days. Was that unfair to take another shot at Windhorst? Yeah, I want to take that back. That was almost that wasn't meant to be mean-spirited in any way, right? But you're picturing a young Windhorst, probably, was one of those reporters that always carried a bag of food, no? There are guys like that, right? Where they show up at games and they already have like a double cheeseburger from Wendy's that they imported themselves. Well, I don't like the food in the press box, especially after they made you pay. That was a great luxury at one time, Louis. You missed that period of time where they would feed you like a meal that you would get, say, at like Tropical Acres, like a prime rib dinner before the game.
Dolphins do. The Dolphins are the one that give you like a nice pregame meal. The rest
This
of
was
them,
at like baseball games. I mean, you
yeah,
you walk in and it was better than eating at fine restaurants when I used to go cover those Dodger and Angel games.
oh, out west. Oh yeah,
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Dodgers are notorious for like ridiculous food.
Although I like that, but at the same time, I used to love going to the Olympic Auditorium. They had the best hot dogs there. All of LA sports concessions sell the best hot dogs you will find at any
I was gonna say
stadium.
the Dodger dog is supposedly a great dog.
The Dodger dog is brilliant, and I think everybody was in on the strategy there. Where they were going to Farmer John to get their Dodger dogs. Because all of the stadium hot dogs were fantastic. Now some people would say, what, Chicago hot dogs? The hot dogs better in Chicago. A lot of people like the Cleveland baseball mustard.
Yeah,
Which is that unique? Do they only sell that at the stadium? I think you can buy ballpark mustard in the stores now. No,
I don't know. I got it from Doc. I don't know. Doc.
the New York dogs were okay, but they started to get a little cheesy, even going back 50 years ago when I was working at Shea. They started to have, and there's no excuse for having those dogs in the aluminum foil, right? Where you get it, it's like been boiled an hour ago. And the bun's all soggy, man. Now you feel like literally like Joey Chestnut going up there. Just why don't you just throw this thing in some water so I can shovel down about 7 of these at $8 a pop? What's a hot dog go for now in a ball game? Do we know?
Oh God,
Is it over $8? Over or under?
it's like 4 or 5. It might be 6. I think it's like 6. I think
Six
it's
bucks for a dog, really?
like $6. Yeah, I think it's
By
like
today's standards of stadium pricing, that's almost reasonable. All right, I'll tell you a place where you don't get stadium pricing when you go, and you're looking for something good to eat. Like my favorite there is the Cuban sandwich. I can't believe what they give you with that at Hialeah Park. It's just dynamite. Absolutely great. And that's the way they treat everybody. And that's the way they've done it forever. I mean, it was always a pleasure to go to Hialeah Park. People had their issues with Hialeah Park. Those were mostly inflamed by, the political maneuvering that was going on to get the middle dates. And it seemed like everybody was lined up against John Brunetti Sr. in Hialeah Park. And yet the fans wanted them to have those middle dates. And, that would have been great, right? Well, what was better than spending January and February at beautiful Hialeah Park? Now you can do it year round. And if, you're of a, slightly degenerate mindset, guess what? You can gamble your brains out in a variety of fashions at Hialeah Park. And that's what you want in a casino entertainment destination, a place where you can do it all. You have the simulcasting, you have the poker room, you have the Vegas style games, you have all kinds of opportunities on slot machines where the jackpots are huge and they are plentiful, man. It is the land of good and plenty. That's what they could call Hialeah Park. Do you think they put that right underneath it anymore? Where they should, Hialeah Park,
plenty.
racing casino, and the land of good and plenty. That would apply. They have a big wine tasting thing coming up. Check that out at hialeahpark.com. That's going to be great. It's like a 5-course dinner and wine tasting, and that's going to be a very festive affair. I mean, that's the kind of thing they do there. They do everything from that to like an Easter egg hunt for the kids. Really, really make it just a pleasure to attend anything that's happening at beautiful Hialeah Park. Great place for a ceremony. You're getting married, like Lubie did. Thought about it, but whiffed on that one. That was a call third strike, Lubie. Game 7 World Series. Right on the corner. You took it. Right? And the announcers were saying, well, it was borderline, but you got to swing at that pitch, Lubie. And you probably should have taken a swing on that because, the affairs there at Hialeah Park are beyond memorable. You won't just be remembering them for, the pink appetizers and the mosquitoes. It would be, the degenerate gambling you were able to engage in while, the ceremony was kind of bogging down a little bit, right? Where the two people were expressing feigned sincerity about their feelings. You were sincere, Lubie. I mean, you really meant it. You could see you really meant what you were saying.
We brought the whole family. What do you mean? We were really close to signing there. She just got this idea of a barn and
Yeah.
and like you are well aware if a woman, especially with a wedding, and you're able to find one. We found like 8 places in Homestead that had barns. So I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, because you were basically in a residential area there. I mean, some cowboy said, hey, these people want to get married here. Stake their money. Do we know how to make, coconut shrimp? Whatever those were, Louis, they were great. But I mean, no, you looked right into her Shirley's eyes, and you were very sincere.
Yes.
Whereas, I immediately, put into question exactly what they meant by "till death do us part."
Oh, you're talking about
Yeah, where the guy says, "till death do you part," and you just look at him and go, "Not so sure about that."
God.
Since this is my third crack at it. Anyway, Hialeah Park would be a great place to get married, and you'd be more likely to have it succeed because you got married in just a beautiful environment. That's just one of a zillion things that are featured at Hialeah Park. Check it out, hialeahpark.com. Poker, simulcast. You got the Preakness coming up a week from Saturday already. I mean, we're right back into the Triple Crown. It's going to be great. I don't know who's running in that thing. Do you? Do you come back and reinvest any of the money that you won in the Derby and the Preakness, or is that a tougher race to hit? Should be easier by all rights, should it not? You've already kind of seen one, like we were talking about in the Bruins series.
So the Preakness is the one in Baltimore, Belmont to New York, but the Preakness comes first.
Preakness is coming up in 2 weeks, and then the Belmont is 3 weeks later. So the Belmont's like June 8th or something like that.
I was trying to explain it to Shirley because she's now Miss Horse Racing, and we watched the Derby together, rooted on our failing trifecta and exacta.
Yeah.
And she was like, "What's the three? What are the three?" And I had the right races. I've been around. Yes. I didn't have the order right. I thought New York came first.
Yeah, Pimlico Race Course in Baltimore, Maryland. That's where they hold the Preakness. They don't do a lot of racing there anymore. It's mostly Laurel, on that circuit. But I'm not sure even how many months a year they operate at Pimlico. But fabled old track. I mean, like Bowie, like one of these real old, racing treasures that you had where everybody was wearing a suit and a top hat and a fedora, smoking a cigar. And, the whole crowd looked the same, right? They all look like they were lining up, to get immigration papers there at the Statue of Liberty. What was it? Ellis Island? That was it, right? Ellis Island, right? Where, a guy had to New York written on his chest, so they named him Tony. The old joke about all Italians. Anyway, it's going to be a dynamite place to catch the Preakness. That's Hialeah Park. You get all the atmosphere, too. I mean, you really feel like you're at the Preakness when you're there. They do a great job. Check it out for yourself. Open 7 days and 7 nights a week, 3 a.m. on they may have even, I don't know, they cleared that hurdle. I know they did it at a local casino here. The Harris Casino is open 24 hours now. Is that still a restriction? I mean, while Ron DeSantis is regulating what books children can read, has he at least taken the hammer off these casinos and just said, look, we know that people want to be there 24 hours a day, so why not just let them have it? Anyway, Hialeah Park, great place to go. All of your entertainment and gaming needs right there at beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, we're coming back with more. Sean Deveney, Heavy.com, great basketball analyst, going to join us later on. We'll get into all of these series that are taking place, including Boston and Philly. They crank it up tonight, don't they? Boston and Philadelphia. I think that.
They play tonight. They're playing.
Yeah, that pivotal game 5 is tonight.
Pivotal game 5. Yep.
Pivotal game 5. Yeah, I mean, after taking a pivotal game 4, right? You don't want to be down 3-1, so game 4, pivotal. And Philly was able to pivot on it, although they nearly spit the bit. Had the game, seemingly under wraps, and then, coughed it up in the fourth quarter, came back, and got very, very lucky to win that game. Very lucky. I was not, really overwhelmingly impressed with the 76ers so far. Were you? If you're going to live and die by the Jekyll and Hyde antics of what James Hugh Harden
they trusted
in the postseason, if that's going to be, the deciding factor instead of Embiid.
Oh, that's why I gave them a chance, because I'm like, if Embiid's MVP and Harden's able to be the number 2 guy and willing to be the number 2 guy, and Maxi's a strong 3, then they could be scary. The problem is Embiid got hurt. He's not the same. And then Harden's not this guy every night.
No.
It's here.
I don't know. Is he capable of being that guy every night? That would be the question. I'm not even sure that this is his playoff, mindset where, he did a vanishing act in game 7s. And, whenever, he would score like 50 points in the first 6 games and then get 3 in game 7. And that would be that. I'm not sure it's a choking thing. I mean, obviously this guy's been around for a while. He's playing a very good role. Doesn't look like he's nearly as quick as he used to be. I don't know that he ever really looked quick in what he was doing, but I mean, I think it's even slower than we can imagine. He's rolling by big men whenever he gets to switch and going right to the hoop. But, he made a clown of Williams, who was trying to guard him on a switch. So they're doing some good things in terms of getting him mismatches. Doc Rivers factor also. You have to figure if there's a way to. But I mean, the Boston coach, what's his name? Masula or something like that?
He's not so
Mazzulla?
much better. Yeah, I mean, he's like 15. I don't
He does look a little shell shocked, in certain
I
situations.
don't
doesn't he?
understand that move at all. I guess he was on the staff, so that, and look,
Long-time assistant, and your man Udoka got a job now with the Rockets, of course.
yeah, he was
Yes.
supposed to go to the Raptors. That's what's funny about that. The Rockets came out of nowhere and snuck in and grabbed him. He at least was legit, and he had been in a assistant a long time. Missoula, there's no way he had been in a assistant that long. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's screaming that he didn't call a timeout there at the end of the overtime period.
he seems
When he had 18 seconds to set up a play and instead just let it roll out, and Smart didn't get a shot off.
Shot off.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, always hindsight is the best handicapping tool. No?
Oh, for sure.
Right? You're standing by the screen there. You already know the result of the race. It's like that time I actually, Steve Nickel was the name of the program director we had at WIOD. Made, of course, like anybody in management, made into world renowned by the great Neil Rogers, the late great Neil Rogers. He used to be all over Steve Nickel. Anyway, I'm watching an Arturo Gatti fight that I had seen before, where and I believe it might have been against the fabled Colombian that we were in Barranquilla for to call his fight, Ricardo Torres. And Gatti is getting the shit beaten out of him. I mean, literally through the entire fight. He later comes on and knocks him out in improbable but Arturo Gatti-esque fashion.
Yeah.
So we're watching his fight over at Shuckers, which was a bar nearby both the WIOD and Channel 7 facility. I think Channel 7 is still there on 79th Street, the 79th Street Causeway.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of fun. I mean, because, you had kind of a mixed media there and people used to hang out there. So I'm having a drink after a show. I got done at 8 o'clock with the sports talk shows. Sometimes I was in there earlier in the afternoon. I'm having a drink with Nickel and a couple of other people. And we're watching his fight. And I said to him, hey, I'll bet you the guy in the gold trunks wins. And literally, you're watching this guy. He's bleeding from every pore. I mean, there was no way. The ref had to be within an eyelash. His eye looked like I was, just put through a meat cleaver. He's getting absolutely annihilated to the body, losing every round. And so he takes the bet, like $100, right? And sure enough,
replay.
I was watching a replay. He didn't know that.
You couldn't tell it was a replay. You can tell if it's a replay. They usually
not always. No, not in this case. I mean, I'm Mr. Boxing. Of course, I know it's a replay. I saw the original. He's a program director at WIOD. Maybe trying to, after getting off to a rocky start, forge a little bit of a better friendship and relationship with his like big sports guy, because it was very competitive back then with sports. I think QAM had first come into existence as an all sports station, and IOD was very worried about protecting its legacy as being. And did you ever hear this slogan that they had? Someplace special for sports.
Yeah, I never know.
That was really weak, wasn't it?
It's thrown up.
Who the hell thought that up, man? I mean, what marketing guy? What genius.
Some program director.
Oh, yeah, some program director. Here's what we want to do. We want to cut a bunch of liners that go, WIOD, someplace special for sports.
And they're always like 2 decades behind. Like that's.
But doesn't that sound ridiculous? I mean, think
about
like
that. The 70s. It sounds like something they do in like the 60s.
Some wise guy mafioso who just wants to get the racing results, and he's thinking, how refreshing. This is someplace special for sports. Instead of the guy that wants to call in and go, you know what, Defo, the Knicks suck, and so do you. That's the kind of calls we used to get. It was great. All right, let's get out of here for a while. Sean Deveney going to join us. We'll talk some baskets. The lovely Jessica Blaylock on the Cats later on. A bunch of other stuff was going on. Vegas last night in the NHL. They're down 1-0 to Edmonton, and I was about to text you, Lubie, don't sleep on the Oilers.
I was going to try and watch it, and then I was like, yeah, I don't care.
And then Vegas rattles off the next 5 goals. It was incredible. I think they had the 5-1 lead after 2, and that was the final there. So Vegas goes up 2-1 on Edmonton, winning on Edmonton's home ice, just when everybody in the world was about to anoint Edmonton as the team to beat now. The Kraken, amazing story. I mean, if we weren't watching this Panther story, I don't know, would it be relatable to any of us? I mean, it's so similar to what was happening with the third-year Florida Panthers back in the day, right? Talking 95, 96. Here's a second-year expansion team, and they are now up 2-1 on the Dallas Stars. shelled them last night. Shamed them. 7-2, I think, was the final. They might have been up 7-0 in that game. The Seattle Kraken. How the hell are they doing that, Lubie? I couldn't name you one Kraken. Could you?
Oh, no.
Not one single Kraken, even after watching some of their games.
No idea.
The Stars, were a team that, as we've been saying, I mean, what do the wise guys really know? Well, who are the wise guys, Lubie? What wise guys are you listening to? I guess is the key.
They're here. The only wise guys I know are here.
I don't like you referring to us as wise guys, Lubie, huh? You got a little of that from Vito and Eddie back in the day.
Yeah, man, that was always fun. Ken, what is going on? I don't know, Lubie. Just keep going. But he's like,
remember the night they came to kill me? I mean, that was great. Yeah.
like right here, Ken.
And
He's
thank God, you know what? I got out of that with a Luca Panici tip horse that we gave Eddie, and it went off at 35-1 and won by the smallest of nose hairs. And the next thing you know, I was the fair-haired boy.
They would come up, and I'm like, "What do they want from us?" I have no idea what arrangement, concocted arrangement the Parliament came up with.
They were like actually legal documents. Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not involved in any of this shit. I'm like, and they would just.
It was a poorly brokered deal, I would say. We were onto something. We were ahead of our time. We didn't realize what kind of financial wherewithal you would have to actually make it work. That's the problem, right? I mean, you had to have some big organization behind you at that time to get any of these, sort of in its infant stages, podcasting and internet radio type of stuff to get any of that going. And now people have really cashed in on it. We have yet to, but we will, Lubie. I assure you. Getting the green light from Green Light Ventures here. What do you think?
We're gonna do our own thing. And
yeah,
we'll figure it out somehow. Always.
One call to FanDuel would do it. Where's Andy, man, with that progress that he was making? I got a guy who knows a guy who could find you a guy. All right, we're going to come back. We have a lot to talk about. Marlins, as we said, the losers last night. Zach Gallen. I mean, they've lost some hideous ratio of ball games, like 7 out of 8. I don't even know. I lost track. They lost 5 in a row, and then they won 1, and I think they've lost their next 2. So I'm going to say they're 17-19 now. And guess what, Lubie? As high as we were in the Marlins just a week ago, how fickle the world of sports can be.
It is funny how the NL East, the last few years, has been this heralded division.
Yeah.
When the season starts and everyone but the Braves suck.
well, the Braves started slowly last year, remember? And they had injuries. Acuna, I guess he got injured midway through the season. They really came on, I want to say, in the second half. That's my recollection anyway, which may be pretty foggy. But as I recall, the Braves didn't get off to all that great of a start. The Phillies, they were compromised before the season started, though they did get, the quickest recovery from Tommy John surgery in history, in medical history. Where, maybe it's not as complicated if you're not a pitcher, but Bryce Harper coming back from his Tommy John surgery, which it was interesting because I had to think about this. I was reading an article about it, and they were saying he had Tommy John surgery on his shoulder. Like, that's not possible, right? It's an elbow surgery, Lubie, right? Am I crazy? There's no such thing as Tommy John on your shoulder.
They'll do a shoulder. What they'll say is it's a Tommy John-like shoulder surgery.
Oh, yeah? It really is something that...
Oh, no. The shoulder surgery is a shoulder surgery.
Because I thought he had an ulnar nerve problem, which is the elbow. Isn't it amazing how you had to become like a medical... somewhat of a medical person to do sportscasting for a while. And we all want to diagnose these injuries and say, oh, no, he should be okay. He'll be playing Tuesday. I mean, how do we know, right? Are we walking around on Jimmy Butler's ankle? No. But he does appear to be fine. And that's a good thing for the Miami Heat. All right. Anyway, the Marlins losers, Zach Gallen did him in. Yep. Zach Gallen has been dynamite for the Arizona Diamondbacks, a real steady force. Would you rather have Zach Gallen right now or Jazz Chisholm? What do you say?
Gallen, what do you mean? The Marlins pitching has been inconsistent as fuck. And Jazz Chisholm is average. Average might be a compliment.
As flashy as he is, he's putting up very pedestrian numbers. No,
he's not stealing bases, which is what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to get on base. He doesn't do that. He's supposed to actually have power for a fast guy. He does not have that. He does the hair. His hair is cool looking. He's an average player. That's literally what he is.
Andy says he dropped Todd Schrupp's name to his big connection at FanDuel, and the guy now doesn't return his calls. Schruppy's got to be held in high regard there, right? My good buddy Todd Schrupp from his days at Calder, fantastic meteoric career rise. Signed with this Fletch. I remember when he told me that he was going there, and he said, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to get a job with this new thing. It's called television games." I thought, well, good luck with that, man. And next thing you know, 20 years later, the guy's at like the Royal Ascot, man. Even King Charles can't get a seat there. There's Todd Schrupp, and he's punching away at the windows. It's great. All right, back with more in a moment here on the Defo Show. Mike Mayo's lunchbox at 12 o'clock today. Mayo spent a lot of the time yesterday talking about his triumphant Derby episode, which is good, right? One of the followers, loyal followers of the show. I don't know. Does she also follow this show, Joanne, the lovely Joanne?
She's commented once or twice on this show with she randomly, the only time she's ever watched was
she's not really a sports person, so she wouldn't really have that much interest in this program.
The two times I recall were weirdly when Ken was on.
Yeah.
So it was not only sports.
Oh, she took offense at some of the things Ken was proposing?
I don't know. Maybe you weren't here the time. Two times she and Ken was actually on. Oh, that's what it was. Once Ken was on with Mayo, and then second Ken was here. And Ken was very tame. He wasn't really saying anything.
Oh, on the food show? Yeah. I mean, it's toned down. Yeah.
He was like, that was... he used a very strong word to describe it. And I'm like, he didn't even say anything.
Disgusting might have been.
And he have a weird way of seeing things. I'm like, I mean, he didn't say anything there. I'm like, thank God.
I remember. I mean, she might have commented on the show here, and I think she thought something we said was very inappropriate, and she didn't realize, that we were joking. Of course. I mean, maybe the joke was in completely and utterly poor taste. Not uncommon on this program, but I mean, we try to be the epitome of class here, do we not, Lubie? That's how we made it through the 11 and change on the radio. We're constantly, as Trevor Denman would say, exuding class, as if she's sprouted wings. I love that guy.
Disturbing. That's what it was. Ken had said something, and it was not neither Mayo nor I knew what she was referring to, and she's like, "That was disturbing," and I'm like, he didn't say anything. He was like very.
Oh no, but I mean, I could see where somebody that was uninitiated to the type of proceedings we're conducting here would find it disturbing. In fact, the whole show would be disturbing.
I think she said disturbing when Ken was with Mayo, and he didn't say anything. And then he was doing a top 5 on our show, and again was being very tame by Ken standards. And she was like, "Oh, I'm revolted," and I was like, "That's when I was like, listen, Joanne, I appreciate you following us, but your language is extremely graphic for the things that are actually happening. I don't know what happens in your daily life, but like he hasn't said anything. Yeah. Like, don't ever watch.
By the way,
this is nothing.
Tell Mayo to do a little research on this place, Chunky Boss, out of New York now. Chunky Boss.
But is it here? Where is it here?
There is none here. There's only one U.S. location.
What does that do for us?
Very popular in the Philippines because it'll be here. Because I mean, we copy trends, do we not?
Okay. All right.
I would imagine these places be all over New York. They can't even, they want to stay open till 7, and they can't stay open past 1 o'clock in the afternoon before they sell out every day.
Is it?
It's like a chicken cutlet made with some kind of Taiwanese, influences. And it's very reasonably priced, especially by New York standards. It's like $10, and you get like a cutlet and a drink and fries. And people say it's made in some kind of fashion that makes it so good. They're literally lined up. It's on the East 54th and Lexington. East 54th. That's what I'm trying to say. East 54th at Lexington. And it's become a phenomenon, man, in like a month or so. Chunky Boss. Watch for that. Big article in the New York Post about it the other day, and the people are just raving about it. Well, would you wait in line 4 hours to get something? I mean, it's always the phenomenon about Chick-fil-A, another chicken joint that I don't get it with that one.
The only place I ever wait in a line that looks like it's going to be an hour and ends up never being that long was Cafe Du Monde. Cafe Du Monde's line in the morning.
Yeah,
looks like it's going to be 5 hours, like a Disney line.
They go quickly, yeah,
very fast.
Yeah.
Any other line, like you just said, a Chick-fil-A. If I have a hankering for Chick-fil-A, and I drive by, and it's one of those fucking lines that goes onto the goddamn road. I'm like, okay, bye-bye, Chick-fil-A. I'm like, you're just food. I don't need to wait an hour or 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm probably not waiting an hour anymore.
No.
I don't think so.
A restaurant.
Half hour, I don't even know if I want to stretch it to 45, unless it's like a place that you've been absolutely dying to go to, and
like
they hit you with the, the ugliness that, hey, it's going to be 45 minutes before you sit down. Jack, even with that 20, right? I used to wait an hour for the old fish shack there when they only had like 3 tables. And they would tell you, okay, you're like fifth in line or whatever. And then you'd be outside. They had these little plastic chairs. And it was, in the evening. So the sun was setting on that side. And literally, you felt like, I don't know, this movie used to play all the time on Rain Out Theater. I've talked about it before. Jimmy Stewart special, Carbine Williams, where he's, whenever you're put in solitary, he's in prison in this movie. And he comes up, he invents, some kind of new, the carbine rifle, right? But they had him in like a sweat box, where they put you in a little box and you're outside just baking in the sun. That's what it was like waiting for his table in this restaurant. And yet you would do it. It was that good. Right? And what? Based on simplicity. But other than that, I mean, they tell me it's going to be an hour wait. I'm probably out of there. What about you? I mean, you're going for Italian food. We did it the other night. We didn't, have to wait. We got a table right away. But, yeah, I mean, if it's going to be an hour, aren't you going down the block? No?
Yes, 100%. Like, look, if you are going out with people and they tell you 45 minutes, you probably bear it. It ends up being an hour. But like when they tell you an hour and a half or something, I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
we'll see you.
Yeah, if they're saying an hour and a half, yeah, I'm gone.
I'm good. Yeah, look, if someone said this the other day, there's too many good places down here to like.
Oh man, that's amazing.
You just don't
You can. I mean, as soon as you think about going out to eat, you could come up with 100 places you wouldn't mind going to. In a relatively small radius of geographical space. Yep. It's not like you got to schlep all over the place to find like a dozen good places. It's amazing. All right, we're coming back with more here in a moment. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, so we'll discuss more of that. But Chunky Boss, Michael, you got to check this out. Surprised he wasn't aware of it already because it's a phenomenon. And you're thinking, how do we get one down here, Lubie? Why can't we get that concession?
Probably will.
A franchise, yeah. Chunky Boss. I mean, based in the Philippines. It's all over the Philippines.
They're doing big cities. We would probably get it.
All right, let's see what happens. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that.
The time.
It's about time we got to that, huh? I mean, we were going to wear out Albert Castillo. He was going to have blisters on his fingers. It's 8:04. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in Style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in Plantation, because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Are you looking to buy your first home? Have you been turned down for a loan? Do you need to refinance or get money out of your home? Call Michael Kodzi, CEO of Choice Mortgage. He's been helping the South Florida community get mortgages for 30 years.
Hi, this is Michael Kodzi, CEO of Choice Mortgage. We have the most competitive fixed rates in the market. Call me 24/7, 561-441-2730. And remember, I don't just work banking hours. To make the right choice for your home, call Choice Mortgage today.
This comes from the great Defo Lama. It's the bets you don't make, the chances you don't take, that can compromise an otherwise incredible life, my friend.
The only way to get your morning started is with Defo, joined by Lubie, right here on The Defo Show.
That's my big fetch with myself and, my partner there on the Kentucky Derby Trail, the great Ray, Piscataway Ray. Because, had we had, a little bit of chutzpah, right? You're thinking, if you're going to take a swing at the Kentucky Derby, right, and then engage a partner, Libby, think about this. Follow this degenerate logic for a second. Swing for the fences, no? Now we did, in a sense. We actually were too conservative because we did, make a crazy $25 exacta box with the 8 and the 11, Lubie, which was very illogical. So now essentially you've bet 25 to win in place on either the 8 or 11, which you could have made some money on. Or also, my original strategy was to take the same 5 horses that we had boxed in this trifecta box, and then add a 6th horse in a 50-cent trifecta box. All right, so you would have had the trifecta for another 50 cents had your original combination, come in, and in this case, that would have been worth about $500. So we could have had that. That was shut down. That philosophy by Ray, who then should have suggested, right, if this had gone perfectly, this conversation. And I'm not sure. Are you always paying attention to somebody when strategizing a way to approach, like making a bet? Are you always listening to the other guy? What do you think, Louie? Very few people actually listen to the other guy. Depends who's speaking, right? Does it not?
Yeah, I was gonna say I do.
Yeah, you do, because you're trying to formulate an opinion, which is fine. I mean, but you have your opinion on who's going to win certain games.
I have my opinion. I just don't gamble. It takes someone that I trust to make.
Well, the money management aspect is obviously key, because you can have the winner, which we did with Mage. Now, it wasn't our first choice, but certainly was a horse that virtually everybody that we talked to, except, I don't know, did Kate and Brainard mention Mage at all in her conversation?
No one mentioned Mage except for Polyman. Polyman had a weird thing with Mage. And then they kept showing Mage right before the race when they were doing the trotting around the track.
And he looked good. I mean, he was wearing, I think, some back wraps, which I don't normally, love so much. But, I'm not sure, what kind of crucial difference that makes. But I mean, you're looking at a series of mostly regal-looking animals to begin with. So, to sort of stand out a little bit in that crowd is like we always talk about, right? Where the people show up at the park, and one of them is Michael Jordan, who looks like the basketball player, Jordan.
Yes.
Even if he shows up with a bunch of other NBA guys, if he shows up with Matthew Dellavedova, though, who stands out? Jordan. Maybe that was an extreme example there. That's like comparing some
LeBron
cheap
and
$1,500 plater at Turf Paradise to Secretariat.
I mean, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
Jordan and Dellavedova.
Just trying to make a point. All right. Anyway, the point was that there were a million ways that you could have approached this. But I do believe now, and this will always be my strategy into the future, is to make sure that I have some superfecta action with a chance to hit it. It would cost you $120 to make this bet, Louie. It was $60 to box 5 horses in a trifecta. So you have 2 horses you can throw out of the equation. One of which, happened to be Tapit Trice, who, is that horse still running? Where is this horse? Tapit Trice. Not to diminish his accomplishments coming in, but I literally have no recollection of seeing this horse in the race. Do you? I know the 8-ball, the winner, Mage, got slammed at the start. And normally that's the big fear, right? That you're going to get so compromised coming out of the gate there with 20 horses in the field that there's no way to recover. So, nice job there by JJ Castellano, who, has been around a long, long time. Was that his first Derby win? I want to say yes. JJ Castellano finally gets his first Derby win.
They were, I mean, look, put it this way. If we had known they were such a strong Latin contingent, we would have made Mayo win on Mage. Like, I had no idea that, like, they were playing the Venezuelan national anthem. They were dancing
everything.
Around.
Yeah.
It was like a whole thing. All of them had a thick accent. I was like, what the fuck? Shirley was like, you didn't tell me they were Latin. I'm like, I don't know they were fucking Latin.
I didn't know anything about these people.
I know that. I'm like, Polyman, Mr. New York picked them. He didn't talk anything about, he wasn't like drinking cafecito. Like,
it's funny too, because I mean, they went through all the people that were on the crew, covering for NBC. They had like a crew of 20. And for the most part, did a really nice job. I mean, some of the people like the lovely Brittany Yurton, they borrowed from TVG. She's great on this stuff. I mean, really fantastic. Looks the part, does a great job. Donna Brothers out there on the horse was getting some decent material from the people after the races, which that interview is usually like the coach's interview when especially with a football coach just before the half, right? They asked Nick Saban, "Hey, coach, you're up 50. You going to do anything different in the second half?" And after giving whoever the reporter is a really dirty, nasty look, Saban, knowing he has to say something or he'll be fined by the NCAA, turns and says, "Yeah, we're really going to have to dig in and make sure that we play some defense in the second half." And then that Mountie, with the guy with the Mountie hat, which was always big with Bobby Bowden, right? When you have these Mounties escorting you off the field, then you're going to a hillbilly school, right? You were just about as far south as you could get without. I guess this was at the very end of what would be Hillbilly Alley, right? But would you consider Orlando schools in the hillbilly district? No. Gainesville. Gainesville. Yes, Gainesville.
Yeah, obviously Gainesville. Orlando feels hillbilly. UCF does not. You get a lot of South Florida in UCF.
Yeah, UCF I think is probably evolved even further from when my son went there like 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, well, that time to now, it's become very.
Is it still under construction forever? They were always building something there.
Probably. That's their thing. But yes, the northern school, Gainesville and Tallahassee is very hillbilly. Yes. 100%.
All right. Anyway, it was good. I mean, there were a million ways to bet the Derby, but had we done this, had we had some, just a little bit of chutzpah when it came to our thinking, because you're getting together with somebody and you have to decide. Do you like the same horses, or how are you going to do it? If you're making a 5-horse trifecta box, who's picking 3 of the horses? Is there one that you have to have in there? And we did both feel like, geez, as much as we hated the horse, you probably had to throw Tapit Trice into a 5-horse trifecta box, no? Just in case this horse, this pig, showed up late and showed up third.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. You would not be rooting for the horse to be there. You were rooting for him to be eliminated, but that's why you have, they created the extra room by spending the $60 for the box, right? Mm-hmm. And then the same 5 horses in a super box. That's my strategy from now on, Derby. So that cost you $180, Lubie, altogether, and would have netted back $16,000 instead of $1.
Okay. That's a lot. Hold on.
But the Derby, I mean, by the same token, but this $25 exacta box we made had the 11 run second, which he didn't. But had he run second to Mage, you would have had a 17-1 shot over a 27-1 shot. You know what that pays in the Derby?
I have no idea.
That's got to be $1,500 a ticket minimum for $2. No,
oh, Jesus.
So right there, we would have picked up 20 dimes had this horse run second. So did we do the wrong thing, or did we just we took a wild shot, which I think you need to do, and it was an even more conservative shot. Unfortunately, though, had we altered our thinking just slightly, boom, you're cashing for 15, 16 dimes. Which now that's a score, Lubie. No, I mean anybody would consider that to be a reasonably good score. $1,000 is going to evaporate in no time flat. If you continue to play and plunge like we do. No,
I would have been happy with 1,000.
Well, I mean, you have to be anytime you walk out of any gambling situation, even up 10 cents, you should consider yourself lucky. I believe. Not that you're getting bludgeoned all the time, but and gamblers are routinely. I mean, here I am. I'm not fetching about it because I was happy. All right. I mean, I ended up turning $100 into 500.
Sound like Mayo.
Yeah.
Mayo does it every time.
but this is what you're looking for, and this is what the Derby makes the Derby great as a betting proposition. Is you can do it.
Yes.
You can hit for 20,000 in a variety of fashions. Without really, having such a complicated issue, and without spending, a mad fortune on it, right? If you were willing to go to the track that day and lose $100, combine it with another guy, now you got 200, and you can take some crazy shots, which we did, but unfortunately, only one of them paid off. If I mean, there it is again, right, Louie? We should open, an optometrist office because most degenerates can't see shit either. Have you noticed that every degenerate is both deaf and blind, even at a young age? Well, was that the 2? Right? I mean, that's happening. You're watching 20-year-olds. Was that the 12? Who was that? And then to read a racing form, right? Everybody's putting glasses on. I mean, Big Al, who's, a guy who's in pretty good shape, right? Health-wise. And he literally straps like a pair of binoculars to his face so that he can read the type in the racing form. And everybody's always amazed. Now, I would think that my vision was crumbling exponentially, by the moment. But I can still, read a racing form without glasses. So is that a good sign, Louie?
We're both younger. We watched the race and we sat there for 5 minutes wondering who won. Like you saw who won, but like, okay, I'm like, is that the 14? Where's the 3? Is that the 3? I thought it was Kingsbarns. Who the fuck is the 3? Where the fuck did this 3 come from?
Oh yeah, no, I hate that when the mystery horse splits you, man.
We're looking
And then you're thinking, oh God, everybody talked about that
and then I
horse.
thought it was the 4 on the outside. And I'm like, we don't have the 4. I'm like, wait, I think it's the 14. I'm like, I think
I'll tell you. I'll tell you what I did was even worse, Libby, and I'm ashamed to admit to this, but I had just had all of my cable TV and Wi-Fi systems changed, as evidenced by that horrible show that we had the day that they did it. When I didn't realize that the router was encased somewhere buried deep in the bowels of this particular dwelling, and so we took it out, and that seems to have fixed the problem, right? We haven't had any of that.
Oh no, it's perfect.
Wi-Fi interrupt us, since, which is good. So anyway, I have a new set of remotes, right? And somehow I ended up punching a button on a remote arbitrarily and not meaning to. That took the race off as it was in progress. So I'm watching, and I had seen Mage take the lead. I see the 2 Phils who we had in this box was second. And I'm hearing the call now, and I'm trying to scramble back to get the race back on. And I couldn't figure out how to do it on the new remote. So now it was like the old days in the Jamaica OTB, where, they didn't have any screens. And you're such a sick degenerate. And I don't know what makes somebody do this, but, they had the speaker, I've told the story many times, up on the ceiling.
Yeah.
And everybody, I mean, they're the sickest loser-looking bunch of people that you've ever seen. I mean, like they came off the cover of the Jethro Tull Aqualung album, right? And they're all looking up at the speaker, and you're doing it too. As if you could see. As if, wow, look at that. So now I'm listening to a call, and I remember I had a big ticket in that fashion without being able to see the race, and it was like a close shave for third. That was in New York many years ago when we were calling a St. John's game. And, believe it or not, Sonny Hirsch never went on these degenerate horse racing ventures with me, as sick of a degenerate as he was. Never went. He would sit in his room, and this, I mean, the betting methodology back then was prehistoric by comparison to today, including calling a bookmaker. But Sonny was all day long on the score phone, looking at scores, because he had action on virtually every game. But he was not a horse racing guy. And so anyway, I have a possibility of hitting like a big trifecta ticket at Aqueduct, even though I'm not at Aqueduct. And I had to just listen to the call, and then there was Durkin calling a race, Tom Durkin, and he says, and it's so-and-so and so-and-so for third in a photo, too close to call. I'm like, wait a minute, I got one of those horses. I don't have the other one. Imagine the agony, and you're trying to figure out, it was almost like trying to read the mind of the GM, and read into what he's saying when they do that NFL draft pre-conference, press conference.
Yeah.
And the GM says, well, we're looking at both offense and defense. And some reporter seizes on that and goes, oh, my God, did you see that? He slipped up. He gave it away. They're going for defense. The guy said nothing. I ended up hitting that ticket, but, I ended up hitting this one without being able to see the finish. And I'm desperately listening for the call. Larry Colmus, by the way, great job by Larry Colmus. No? As much as we love Pete Aiello and, all of our favorites, Frank Miramonti and all of the great race callers around the country, I got to say, Colmus, really brought a lot of excitement and accuracy to that Derby call. Not an easy thing to do. That has to be, I mean, you thought, wow, this guy doesn't have a gig at a regular racetrack. I think he called Del Mar last year. Might have been substituting for Trevor Denman, who may be coming back. I'm not sure. He's sort of like Roberto Duran with retirements. I no fight no more, no mas. And the next thing you know, he's, fighting Iran Barkley at the Garden. Larry Colmus, really good job. I don't know if Denman's coming back anymore. You wouldn't be aware of this, but one of my all-time favorites.
Both of them, I don't see that changing. They've been Colmus for years now, and he does a great job.
Nice job. Yeah, no, Tom Durkin had that position for a long time, calling for NBC. That might be more lucrative. And then he has that gig in Dubai also. And it is on TVG. All right, we want to get back into some buckets here. Never mind my exploits on the Derby. What was that money management lesson? Anything that anybody could even comprehend?
No.
Except that somehow we fucked it up.
You still won.
We won, but we fucked it up.
We actually had the win. Of the 4 horses we picked, 3 of them were in the right spot during the race. And I don't know where the one horse that I didn't think to bet on that everyone else magically bet on the day of somehow.
Yeah, right.
Whether it was Vegas or Hallandale or Pompano Beach, you all just
2 fills.
2 fills.
Yeah.
No one wanted 2 fills.
Like we had Phil Chenier, man, and we were able to pick him in the draft.
Us. So
Yes.
I don't feel bad for you.
All right, let's bring on an expert here. And I don't know how much confusion we've created with all of that conversation. Except that any degenerate, no matter how much money you win, no matter how lucrative the enterprise was for you on that particular day, you're still going to find a reason to be upset.
Exactly.
Kind of like Tom Thibodeau looks right now. We welcome Sean Deveney, Heavy.com, basketball analyst, a longtime NBA analyst to the program, always one of our favorites here. Sean, how did you do? Did you bet the Derby, or were you involved at all?
I did. I think my horse is still finishing right now. So
Oh, yeah, verifying you had that one. We gave that one out as one of our favorites. Dead last.
I had King Russell was my horse. And,
okay.
Wound up in the middle of the pack.
Do you have an uncle named Russell? A child?
My partner, her maiden name is Russell. So,
nice.
Oh, you had to bet it then, yeah.
I was, and plus it was Coronation Day, so I figured, well, something's going to be telling me that that's King Russell here, and it turns out it was somebody who was lying to me.
Well, so, and it sounds like, and we are very heavily involved in matters of the occult, and we often try to figure out how to read the signs from the gods of gambling. But you were reading the signs there, right? Coronation, the tie-in with Russell.
It seemed like I couldn't lose, but it turns out I could.
Yeah, no, there were like 17 ways to lose that thing, and 17 million extrapolations of ways to lose when you get into the so-called exotics. All right, speaking of looking sick, Tom Thibodeau, well, we've been joking about this. I mean, next to the word schlep in the dictionary would have to be Tom Thibodeau at this point. He just looks like a disheveled shell of himself, and not so much because, I mean, this was even when the Knicks were rolling against the Cavs. This guy just looks like a guy that should be selling hot dogs, outside of the arena instead of, coaching the Knicks. But, a brilliant 2-time coach of the year, had a nice season with the Knicks, kind of breezed against the Cavaliers, which did surprise some people. And yet not looking too swift in the series. What are you seeing between the Heat and the Knicks so far, Sean Deveney?
Yeah, the defense has not been the same for the Knicks, especially in clutch moments. I think that Miami's been able to expose some things. Jalen Brunson's size, the fact that Julius Randle is sometimes only a semi-engaged defender. The Heat have done well to take advantage of that. And the thing is that about the series, Miami's really done well to take away the Knicks bench, which has been, such a huge part of sort of their rebirth since they got Josh Hart at the trade deadline. Hart probably cost them some last night, and he's been such a boon for them. Not having Emmanuel Quickly is obviously the runner-up in the Sixth Man Award. That really hurt them as well. But yeah, that bench has not been the same for the Knicks, and it was such a weapon for them. And coming into the series, you had to think that was a big advantage for them against the Heat team that had Butler hurting and of course had a Hero out. But that bench has really been much better than anybody could have expected. To grow people as well, much better than anybody could have expected for the Heat.
It's interesting you talk about guys who were there, not there, and for the Heat, it's guys that hadn't been there and woke up. Kyle Lowry, we've talked with you about Kyle Lowry, how it was one of those moves that might have set the Heat back. One of those moves that a Heat team that was a 1 seed last year fell off because in large part they couldn't go get other players because in large part they went and got Kyle Lowry and he himself was doing nothing. I don't know if it's health. I don't know if it's big time players wake up at big time moments, but he's been a very different dude in these playoffs, especially in this series. Honestly, without Hero, when they go to the bench, instead of going to the doldrums, Kyle Lowry has actually made those minutes amazing. They've actually been better at times when they go to the bench, and not only kept the lead, they've extended the lead many times in this series without Butler. The Butler minutes were the big fear, where the Butler minutes have been without Butler minutes have been very strong. We talked to you a lot about this. You follow this league, you cover this league. What has happened? Is it just health? Lowry said, look, I'm the healthiest I've been all year. Is it just that simple?
Yeah, I do think it's that simple. And you'd have to get into the reasons of, okay, well, why weren't you healthy throughout the year? And did that have something to do with conditioning? Was it a chicken and the egg thing? Did the conditioning fall off because the health wasn't good, or did the health fall off because the conditioning wasn't good? That's something that I don't know. Maybe Kyle Lowry has an honest answer on that, but it certainly didn't look like he was in great condition, and that, at his age and in this league, with the physical demands of the travel and all that, that's going to cost you. And it certainly looked like that was the case for him, that age and the lack of exceptional conditioning that you need to, when you're going to be that age trying to play in the NBA, that all that combined. But, now you do see what I think Miami was hoping for from Kyle Lowry, especially in terms of, the toughness, but also the smarts to come off the bench and lead that bench unit, the passing. He's been very, very good as a playmaker for them, and that really hasn't been there all year. So, really throughout the playoffs, that I'm pretty sure this is true, that when he has a plus game, as you look at his plus minus, if he's plus, the Heat win. And that's been true all throughout the playoffs. Certainly in this Knicks series, I'm not sure if it was 100% during the Bucks series. But I know in this Knicks series, if his numbers are on the plus side, then the Heat win. That's just been a pattern, and you can understand why. Don't have a whole lot of other depth, but he's just been so good.
Sean Deveney guesting with us here on the Defo Show. Heavy.com is where you'll find his work. Longtime NBA writer and analyst. And I think that playoff moxie that Lowry displayed when he was with Toronto was kind of that element that people were looking for here, and it just didn't seem to be there during the regular season in any way, shape, or form. No semblance whatsoever. But we are seeing that now. I mean, he's hitting a lot of key shots like he did when he was with the Raptors and was part of that championship team with Kawhi Leonard down the stretch here. I was reading an article today in the New York Post, Sean, about, and they were quoting Bam Adebayo talking about Eric Spoelstra, who, surprisingly in 15 years has never won Coach of the Year, even though regarded by general managers
The best in the league.
as the best coach in the NBA. And Adebayo was talking about this sort of clairvoyant component that Spoelstra has, where he's already thinking ahead to what other teams are going to do and how to maximize his chances of winning games, based on things that people may not have even seen yet or haven't thought about yet, that he's 2 steps ahead of everything. We read this question by Ron Rossi the other day, and curious to see what you think about it. If Eric Spoelstra was an assistant coach to Red Klotz, would the Generals have been a 500 team, in your opinion? Is he that good? And I think that's a reasonable barometer, to try and measure a coach's success or failure.
I think it's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
They would have been able to. They'd have been able to dust off, Gabe Vincent, and he would have found some threes. But I mean, it's the fact that he hasn't won a Coach of the Year. Jerry Sloan was the guy for so long. He was such a great coach, and has never won the Coach of the Year. And Spoelstra's kind of carrying that mantle, mostly because he had the LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade teams, and I think that no one was going to give him Coach of the Year during that stretch. But he gets it this time of year, and the thing is, all right, so he gets credit for like Bam Adebayo said, for making adjustments during the playoffs and kind of seeing what he thinks is going to happen. But what you got to remember is that he's been doing this for 82 games. He uses these 82 games to find out what he can get from players. And, when you get coaches who keep guys glued to the bench during games in November and December, and then don't dream of turning to those guys when you have an injury or something at this time of year, and maybe you've got to ask for more from Caleb Martin, or whether it's Duncan Robinson or Cody Zeller, or even Haywood Heisman. You kind of already know what you're getting because you've seen it. You develop that guy throughout the year. So many teams don't do that. They're so focused on winning the game in December rather than, all right, maybe you take the loss, but you found out something about a guy who might help you here in May. And so Spoelstra gets a lot of credit for those playoff successes. I think the thing that gets lost, though, is that he really prepares himself for that during the season.
All right, so the Knicks now find themselves on the verge of elimination, going back to Madison Square Garden, down 3-1 in that series, and a probable 8th seed has an excellent opportunity, 3 swings now to make it to the NBA Final, where they will face whom if they make it that far, Sean Deveney. We have Boston and Philadelphia. Boston, back with the home court edge, best of 3 series. I wasn't overwhelmingly impressed with Philadelphia in the last couple of games. They almost spit the bit in what was obviously a very crucial Game 4, as all games in the postseason are. And yet they did not fall into that 1-3 deficit going back to Boston. They do have a win in Boston without Embiid. And it's been Jekyll and Hyde James Harden that seems to be the deciding factor in the games that have been played so far. How he goes, so go the Philadelphia 76ers. What do you make of that one? And what kind of chances, let's, get ahead of ourselves. What would you give the Heat of beating either of those two teams from what you've seen so far?
I'd give the Heat a chance against both of those teams, certainly against Philadelphia, which isn't as playoff tested as Boston is, and really is a team that, the holes can be pretty well exposed on Philadelphia. I think the Celtics are really a baffling team because you look at them and you can't tell what you're going to get from night to night. They are very often their own worst enemy. They get back into that Game 4, and they've got every chance to win it, really. And they make some home-headed plays down the stretch, they allow James Harden a 3 where they should never let him take a 3 in that spot. They fail to get off. I mean, how do you not get off a shot at all during a playoff game in overtime with the game on the line when you're down by a point? It's just to not get off a shot at all. It's just remarkable. But that's sort of been the Celtics this year. There's so much talent, and they are better. They are the best team in the league, but they are very often their own worst enemy. So, a team that's disciplined and smart like Miami would certainly have a chance against the Celtics. They'd be up against it because Boston has superior talent. But we saw this last year. It was the same thing. That the Celtics were the better team and still nearly lost that series. So you'd have to give the Heat, I think, a better chance against Philadelphia, but certainly a chance against either one of those teams.
How much of are those miscues on coaching? Because it's funny, Missoula sort of skated through the year because he was coaching a team that was ready to win, and it felt almost like some of those like LeBron teams where just stay out of the way, coach, and we'll take you there. Some of the Miami Hurricanes teams, they joked about Larry Coker, that Ed Reed would be like, coach, go away. But at some point in the playoffs, you see where coaches are needed, and you're seeing it with a Spoelstra. You'll see it from time to time where Kerr will possibly make a difference. You saw in the past with Pop. Like, this guy is young. He's just thrust into this position. And it feels, look, we've seen Doc Rivers do this for years. Finally, people are catching up with the fact that Doc Rivers finds ways to lose when winning is right there in his hand. Like, is that series really, does it feel like one coach versus the other trying to find a way to lose? Like, that's what I felt like when I watched that series.
It's Rocket Spurs at the end of the regular season. Yeah.
Spurs, right. I'd like to hear what Joe Brewer would say to that question, but it's. I think with both of those coaches, they probably take more criticism than they deserve. I think that both of them are very good coaches who have at times had things not working. And certainly Doc has had some really bad luck in the last couple of years. And he's also made some pretty big mistakes during playoff series in the last couple of years as well. But Missoula is sort of a different kettle of fish because he goes back to Brad Stevens, and he's been in Boston. He knows these players. They know him, and they've known him for a long time. So he's got sort of a different level of relationship with these guys, and he's the only guy who stayed on when Ime Udoka came in last year, and then got promoted when Ime Udoka left, and he's pretty ingrained with these guys, and knows them pretty well. But the whole thing with his timeouts and why not? He had two of them, and at the end of regulation and didn't use them. There's plenty to be questioned there. But certainly, if you ask the players, they've definitely got the guys back.
Anybody ever figured out what exactly Udoka did? It had to be the owner's wife, no? That he was having an affair with. I mean, how the hell did that happen, man? I mean, the guy goes from being, just the darling of Beantown to a disgrace, and then ends up getting the Rockets job. And very little was said in terms of detail as to what happened there. All right, the Lakers. I was telling Lubie since they were 2-10.
Don't forget, Defo, that was the punishment from the league, is that he had to coach the Houston Rockets.
You may get Wemby.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, he ends up being right on top of things, which couldn't happen to a worse guy with Tillman Fertitta still owning that ball club. All right, the Lakers. I told Lubie when they were 2-10, don't sleep on the Lakers. That they still had possibilities. Didn't look like they were going to make it with the roster they had. The guy that looks like Rob Lowe, Pelinka, I guess, changed things up and got a couple of acquisitions that obviously were key. And now they sit there, in what you would think. I don't know. Do you consider it a commanding? Obviously, it is numerically, but do they have Golden State by the jugular in this series at 3-1?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they've taken away so much of what the Warriors want to do, and they've been able to withstand, some pretty good performances from Steph Curry. And still been able to win. Lonnie Walker, for them to dust him off at the end of the bench and flop him in there and get the 15 points in the fourth quarter to help them win that game. That's some great coaching, some great GMing there. Because Lonnie Walker was out of rotation. I mean, he was just not. He wasn't playing. He played quite a bit during the beginning of the season, but then they really moved away from him, and just like that, they popped him back in there, and he starts producing. But yeah, the Lakers, they've got the Warriors are a championship team that's come back from a 3-1 deficit before, of course, against Oklahoma City a couple years ago, 2016. In the conference finals, and of course they blew a 3-1 deficit famously in the 2016 NBA finals against Cleveland. So they're probably more comfortable with 3-1 than anybody else, but the numbers are still I think it's 4.7% of teams in the history of the NBA have been able to come back from a 3-1 deficit. So yeah, it's hard to say the way that the Lakers are defending, and you can talk about Lonnie Walker and what Anthony Davis has done and all that. But the way that the Lakers are defending, that they're taking so much away from the Warriors and what they want to do. Golden State shooting 30% from the 3-point line. Obviously, they're not going to win very much when they do that. So the Lakers got to give a lot of credit to their defense.
All right. I mean, perhaps they need to bring more oxygen with them. The question that seemed to be apparent. I wasn't sure that Phoenix was going to hold serve in their 2 games at home. They did against the Denver Nuggets and tied the series at 2 apiece. But can they win a game in Denver, in your opinion, Sean Deveney, and take the series?
No. I think this, there's the old cliche in the NBA that role players play better at home. And I think we've seen that in this scenario. I still think that the Nuggets have much better role players and will be able to maybe get a win in Phoenix in Game 6. So, you've got the 2 games in Denver, and then you've got a chance to win one in Phoenix. And just looking at this series, when the Suns have been able to win, they've really needed some superhuman performances from guys, from Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and certainly you're capable of getting that. It's just a matter of can you rely on that, and I just don't. I think Denver is too deep in the end for Phoenix to keep up with them.
Look, the basketball's been compelling, but I do want to talk about something off-season-ish, and Defo loves making fun of me for focusing on the off-season in the middle of the season, especially when the season's exciting.
Yeah. Couldn't be any more dramatic here. We have an 8th seed, maybe going to the finals. Lubie's already on 2024 draft and free agency issues.
Well, no, I'm not worried about that. The play's compelling enough, but the coach, it's funny, Budenholzer is a guy that we've made fun of being on the hot seat for years. And even their one title run, it felt like was almost gifted because every star got hurt in their wake, leading them to a young Suns team, leading them past the Nets team that only had Durant. And even with only Durant, if his foot was a half a size smaller, they don't beat them. And outside of that year, every year it felt like the Bucks underwhelmed. But a lot of people give Budenholzer a lot of credit for taking the Bucks to that place. And then we find out in this series that looked very peculiar, he loses his brother that they had kept under wraps. So you would think that would affect his thinking. And the Bucks still had no problem, it seems, to can him. What are your thoughts on Budenholzer as a coach? How much blame do you give him for the Bucks sort of derailment this year? And what do you see for them going forward? Because people are sort of writing them off now when they still have Giannis and they still have a really deep, talented team.
Yeah, I think Nick Nurse is probably going to be the guy that you'd have to look at first. Leaving the Raptors, and a guy who's won a championship and has got a pretty good reputation, especially offensively, because the thing that probably gets the most criticism about the Bucks, and the defense wasn't great this year, but the thing that gets the most criticism is that they are so one-dimensional offensively, and they've never really tried to expand beyond that. Nick Nurse is a very, very good offensive coach. So, he'd be the guy who I think would be the most likely candidate to get that job and could actually make an impact. But they are in a situation where, they're getting older, and Giannis is still 28, but Drew Holiday is getting up there, and Chris Middleton. Has been really good at times, but he's getting out. So you've got the other three, the other two in that threesome there are getting a little too old, and so they're trying to find a way to can we develop somebody else, or do we need to make a trade? Middleton's going to be a free agent. What sort of commitment do you make to him financially? They're in sort of a little bit of a crossroads here. So you're right that it's going to start with the coach, and I think Nick Nurse will be the guy, and I think he'll be able to make a difference. But they've got some wider questions to answer in terms of where they're going to go and what the rest of Giannis' career is going to look like.
I think the only show that made Red on Roundball as a halftime filler in NBA television history, that was just more pedestrian and mundane. What was the draft lottery drawing? But when they used to insert that at halftime of a playoff game, and you'd see Elgin Baylor just with his face in his hands after getting jobbed again on another certain number one pick. This year, I mean, you have Wembanyama, who I saw a feature on. He was featured prominently on ESPN over the weekend, and you thought, wow, I mean, look at this guy. I mean, is this going to be the equivalent in drop-off of talent from 1 to 2 from the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Neil Walk draft?
It's 2-3.
Yeah, it's Scoot Henderson. Everybody seems to like, and would probably have been the number one pick. But kind of an undersized point guard, and certainly point guards have sort of taken over the league, but they're not rare commodities. This guy, at 7'4", and he can block, 15 shots a game, and he's got a big blue ox named Dave. He's got everything going for him. This is it is just different, and no question who the number one pick is going to be. You don't get a lot of those kinds of drafts. There's some other good players in this draft. It's just nobody quite like him though. So yeah, there'll be a lot going, a lot riding. 2003 with LeBron is the only, really the only draft that I can think of that has the kind of hype that we're seeing for this guy.
Yeah.
And in that draft, though, you also had Carmelo Anthony and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. So you had some pretty good consolation prizes, even if you didn't get LeBron. It's definitely a much, much deeper drop off from one to the other here.
Has Joe Dumars ever explained what he was thinking when he took Darko Milicic #2 with those other three guys? I mean, waiting on the board to drop right behind him. I mean, and that was one of the shockers of all time. And unfortunately,
they did win the championship the following year, so he kind of skated on that because they won the championship in 2004. And you can always say, hey, look, if we had drafted Carmelo Anthony, maybe he wanted to play, maybe he would have been a problem, and maybe we wouldn't have won a championship. But I don't know, that might be stretching logic a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, giving them the benefit of the doubt there for not taking Carmelo. You would have to say that of the two, Carmelo had the more distinguished career. Sean, always a pleasure. We thank you so much for being with us. We'll talk to you again, we hope, if you're amenable to it, as the playoffs progress, because it certainly has been interesting here in South Florida and always interesting around the rest of the country as well. So we always appreciate your input here on the show. Thanks for being with us.
Okay, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
All right, Sean Deveney, ladies and gentlemen. What do you think? I mean, is this the Kareem Neil Walk draft?
See, I don't know.
Whoever gets the number one pick, I don't know. Do you get blown out? Now, there were probably other people in that draft. Neil Walk turned out to be a stiff, unfortunately. And does anybody mean a timely death? Because his would certainly have to be considered untimely.
I mean, like, God rest her soul, your mother. Late 90s.
Late 90s, yeah. I guess if you make it that far, right? I mean, you have to feel pretty good, right?
You're still sad. I know you were sad, but, it's more of a, well, she had a good run kind of a thing.
I felt she went, very, very far in life in terms of duration of time on the planet.
Got to see grandchildren,
Yes.
That's a nice solid life. So I don't know. It's still sad, but
great grandchildren. Yeah, she got great grandchildren.
I'm sorry. She got to know her grandchild grow all the way up.
Yeah.
And then the father himself.
I don't think I make great grandchildren on this. I got started too late.
Yeah. You're like,
so did my son.
That's gonna be my demise. But she, got to live a full life. So I don't know if we use the word timely, but if it ever fits, that fits. Yes. When someone's in their 20s or 30s, like Len Bias.
Yeah.
Timely. It's just sad. I wasn't around that draft. I don't know what Neil Walk was.
Neil Walk was a Gator center of,
If he was great, I don't know. If
he was all right. He didn't look like anything special. He looked like the second coming of Billy Pauls.
Supposedly this guy, Scoot Henderson, is really good. Like, he's not Wembanyama, whatever the fuck.
Wembanyama.
He's not Wembanyama, but he's really good. Like, supposedly he's really good. And then the Brandon Miller kid from Alabama, people like a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, he looked great. I mean,
he has his legal
indiscretions aside.
Yeah. So there are some guys. Look, the Zion Ja draft Zion was a runaway, but Ja really had a good shot. And we've seen Ja so far outside of recently, he's losing his fucking mind, was clearly the more consistent player. But you weren't mad at Zion because Zion turned out to be good. I think Wemby's going to be fucking insane, and he is clear-cut the best guy. But I think Henderson will be legit. Like, people really like this Scoot Henderson kid a lot.
Is Chet Holmgren going to be a modern-day Greg Oden?
I think so.
And never really amount to anything after, they, brought him in and had, this kind of injury.
Yes.
But people have come back from that injury, right? Who else had that? It wasn't that long ago. Some major star had that same injury, and I believe came back. No, not sure. Anyway, we'll have to check into that because I believe you can make a, it's a year process, but you can come back from that thing and be whatever it was that your
only problem for him is he already had concerns because he was so tall and slight.
Yeah,
and then he got hurt literally in preseason, or was it G?
Yes, he was getting out of a cab, man. It was unbelievable.
Got hurt in like non-contact, and it's a leg thing. I think it is like that's.
Did Blake Griffin have that same injury? Was that what hit him? Yeah,
Griffin did have an injury early on, and then was really good for like a 5 or 6 year stretch.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Griffin was built different. Griffin was built like a fucking.
Oh, he was a tank. Yeah.
Like, I mean, Holmgren isn't, and his frame is slight. Like, it doesn't look like the kind of frame that will put on size. Like, it just doesn't.
I thought he was a little suspect, didn't you?
Look good.
Chet Holmgren, yeah. I mean, I wasn't surprised when they took Banchero, number one, and he distinguished himself. Although the Orlando Magic picked number one every year, and they suck forever.
Yes.
What kind of franchise is that? The league ought to look into investigating whether they need to intervene here. All right, we're going to come back with more. We'll wrap things up in a moment. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, 12 o'clock today. Jessica Blaylock, unfortunately, we weren't able to connect with for a second consecutive day, but we will keep trying, and we will promote her as being part of the show until she's on the show, even if it's 2 years from now.
Yeah, I don't promise that. I think we're done this week.
An aging Defo will still be promoting the fact that we're going to have Jessica Blaylock, Fox Sports Florida, and she's delightful. She's a great interview subject here on the show. So we'll come back and wrap things up with or without Jessica in a moment. Now that time, it's 8:52.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Are we all in stable but critical condition? Is that the way all life is, Lubie? In a general, more figurative sense? Would you say you're in stable but critical condition? I believe you are right now.
Probably.
On the threshold of getting married in the early portion of 2021. Don't you think it's a little soon, kid? You barely notice woman. What are you doing?
We've been together 4 years.
Well, I guess you know enough.
How longer do you want her to put up with me?
Is it you that's pushing for this?
It's equal. We're both very happy and in love. It's very gross.
Oh, my God. I mean, it's a foreign concept. You have to understand where I'm coming from. 0 for 2 with a walk. And, right now I think I got a 3-2 count in marriage number 3. But, and only because of the benefit of a really poor call on a ball that was clearly right down the middle of the plate. One of those Angel Hernandez calls. Get out of here.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show, the Defo Show here, wrapping things up on this fine Tuesday. Always a pleasure to be with you. We thank you guys for tuning in. The comments. Jim Sarni wants to know who Skippy likes in the Westminster Kennel Club show. Skippy Dog. Skippy finds that overwhelmingly pretentious. I mean, like the coronation of the king or the conversations about whether Kelly Ripa is okay with her husband as the co-host on a show that nobody watches. Nor should they care about. And is that not the proverbial, housewife at home eating bonbons while doing the ironing type of show?
Yes.
Hair and curlers constantly, even though they don't have curly hair.
I mean, I don't know if it's household. It's person who stay, because there's men that stay home now. So, but person who stays home, tending to the home, man or woman. Yes, that's. I mean, since Regis was always a little fun. He was a little biting.
Yeah, and I was home. I guess at times when this show was on. But I liked Regis because he had his roots. I mean, first with Joey Bishop as the co-host. He was like the Ed McMahon on the old Joey Bishop show when that was, I don't know how popular it was, but Regis was a popular figure. And then he did this schmooze show like a GMA show, but in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And his co-host was the lovely wife of the great, he is not my padre, Steve Garvey, Cindy Garvey.
Yeah.
who was kind of like Nancy Seaver was to the New York Mets back in the day, in terms of wives of ball players, sort of being like the first lady of the team. But yeah, I mean, Regis always had an engaging personality, so he was easy to take. But in general, who cares about that? That's the way Skippy views the Westminster Kennel Club. Snooty pooty, bunch of spoiled dogs. I mean, they should have toughed it out in the streets like Skippy, right? Bouncing around to foster homes, being subjected to. I hate to even think of what abuse this poor dog was subjected to. I really do.
But look, I actually feel for those animals. I think they despise that thing. I think that the whole thing's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think it's strange. I can't even imagine the mistreatment those animals must go through. Like, there's no way a dog wants to do any of those.
The owners have to be somewhat mashugana to raise dogs. With this level of attention to bringing attention to themselves.
Like, horses want to run. Whatever you want to say, the dogs were not treated well in dog racing, but horses do like running. We do know that, and for the most part, are treated pretty well. These dogs are treated like assholes. They may eat well and all that, but they're training, they're working, they're this, they're that. I feel really bad for those dogs. Like, I actually think that thing is it's outdated as hell, and I don't understand why it still goes on. Like, that thing really.
People are fascinated by it, all the different breeds. I mean, it has its element of entertaining for even a dog owner like me, with a couple of rescue mutts who are certifiably strange, both of them. Well, we're definitely impacted by whatever the hell happened to them before. They say dogs don't have a memory, but they have already formulated whatever. It's kind of like people, where whatever your personality is going to be, it probably has been the same since you were 5 years old, Lubie. Would you say that that's true? That by the time you're 5, you've really developed your persona as a person, as a human being. This is probably the way you're going to carry yourself through life. No? A cranky, crying, fetching, bitching baby. No. But Skippy doesn't have any respect for this. I mean, he's like a street kid. So it would not be, something that he necessarily would be interested in. He considers all of those dogs. I don't want to go Bob Huggins on this thing, right? What the hell did Huggins say? Do we know? Bob Huggins?
He dropped a slur. I'll have to find out. And we didn't talk about the A's guy. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what he said specifically either. I mean, I can't imagine.
He was talking about some event they went to, and
he was talking about the Negro League Museum or something,
he went to
Hall of Fame.
And I think he called it what the. My issue is, he said it like it was nothing. Dallas Braden didn't even get fazed by it.
Then subsequent outrage is created by the people reacting.
I'm not getting rid of him. I don't know if they should or they shouldn't. I'm not trying to defend him. I don't know. Like, he didn't seem like he was trying to be racist or racial. Like, it seemed like he was.
Cancel culture, though, doesn't have a lot of tolerance for that.
Telling an event. I don't know.
Especially for the white announcer that makes a racial slur.
Yeah.
Not that any of it should be condoned if it's intended, but I mean, we've seen that Dave Halberstam, when he was calling the Heat games, I don't know what possessed him to start talking about slave owners.
Look, that's the thing.
It was so out of character for this guy. I mean, he couldn't have been a nicer guy, and you wouldn't imagine that he had a racist bone in his body.
I'm not defending him, honestly. I'm the first one to, like, you shouldn't speak ill or whatever, but I just don't know. What? Like, I watched it a few times, and yesterday, because I was like, okay, we should talk about this, and I'm like, what really did he say? And I watched it, and I'm like, it didn't sound like he was trying to say that. I don't know what.
I haven't seen the clip of what he said.
Watch it, Glenn Krupik. I don't know. I'm not defending it at all. They can fire him. That word does not belong in our language.
I think he's been suspended. I'm not sure that they've had any final disposition yet.
What's the actual place called? What's the real name that he?
I believe it's like the Negro League Museum or something.
It's called it. Like, that's my thing. I'm like, if he's just singing an event, okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of acknowledgement around for the Negro Leagues, and including Major League Baseball referencing them as such themselves. So I don't know what he said. I'll have to watch that. I'll see if I can dig that up somewhere. And this Huggins interview had to be like a doozy, man. A quick story here. I know we got to go here, but we had Bob Huggins on through the lovely and talented Leslie Visser when we were doing the Lapin Nation radio shows many years ago. And we were bringing people of great distinction on. I wasn't, but Leslie was. And Huggins had to have just awakened out of a dead sleep after an all-night bender when he answered the phone. And I wish we had preserved this clip because it was just classic. If you got this big introduction going, and here he is. I mean, a longtime coach, and now with the West Virginia, doing great things. Bob Huggins, and he comes on and goes, "It's gone." I mean, he was gone. I mean, a shot fighter, like some of those comedians we used to have on that were doing coke until 5 a.m. and then came on a show at 6.
Yep.
And you're like, okay. I mean, you probably could have scratched. It would have been okay with us.
Yes.
If this is what you were going to do, you don't come to Las Vegas and talk to a man like Mo Green like that, Michael.
I mean,
Huggins was out of it completely. So I could see where maybe, I don't know, was he not necessarily at 100% when he was doing this interview?
Borderline for a long time. He said some things.
He was defaming a certain faction of fans.
That one I have to listen to. I haven't heard what Huggins said. I know
he referred to them in some kind of very homophobic terms.
I know that he's pushed the limits on things before, and I know his treatment of his players is very Bob Knight-esque.
Yeah.
So I've been waiting for him to be the fact that, like, when I find, because Ken will ask these questions that are trivia that involve active coaches, and once in a while Huggins will be.
He's old school too.
I'm like, Huggins is still coaching. Like, I forget that Huggins is coaching. The last 5 or 6 years, I forget that he's still coaching.
Yeah,
he's been borderline for a long time. Like, I don't see how he keeps his job now.
It's gonna be a tough one to survive this one. Yeah, because he also took a couple of shots, a couple of swings at, I believe, Catholicism. Which probably isn't going to go over big there in West Virginia.
No.
All right, we have to run. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, 12 o'clock today. That should be a lot of fun. Mike Mayo talking about food. I hope he does a little research on this because be curious to see if he's ever experienced the Chunky Boss. I would imagine not.
He said there's a place down here that's very similar.
Similar, okay, but is it Chunky Boss? No.
He's had a name. I'd have to go back in the
So you can't get authentic Chunky Boss out of New York here.
Wow,
there you go. It's right up there with Chinese food. Anyway, 12 o'clock today, Mike Mayo's Lunchbox. And then tomorrow we're going to be at the pizza spot. That's always great, man. I'm looking forward to that.
I'm excited.
Wade and Reese, man, the pizza spot there in that little hard-to-find area, as Mayo often describes it.
Is it Fort Lauderdale? I don't know what the hell it's considered.
I guess it's Fort Lauderdale. Riverwalk area of Fort Lauderdale, something like that.
I don't know.
Somehow you make a right, you make a left, you make a right. It's it's not hard to find, really, once you've been there.
I mean, GPS gets.
I guess no place is, yeah.
Mayo
GPS works well for that. They guide you right into the place. They really do. Tasso could find it.
Mayo loves giving addresses out still, like people follow addresses.
Yeah.
You have struggle finding places sometimes because we still have struggle getting you on GPS. GPS gets you anywhere and it gets you the pizza spot very easily. So I don't even like saying hard to find. It's not the easiest if I was trying to do it from memory, but I don't have to. I have GPS. So
no, I mean, in general, you don't want to describe a sponsor as being hard to find.
Well, they're not. GPS gets you there very easily.
You'll never find it, Stripe, but I tell you, it's fucking great. Mayo clarified things. He says it's in Riverside Park, which is hard to find. I mean,
Jollibee. Jollibee is the place that does fried chicken Filipino style.
Oh, okay. I mean, maybe it's similar. I don't know. This place in New York is kicking it, man. I mean, they're sold out by 1 o'clock every day, and they're lined up around the block, man. Literally. It's causing traffic to be stopped in New York, which is not hard to do, but Chunky Boss, all the rage of New York City right now on the food scene. All right, we'll see you at 12 o'clock. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox as we leave you know that. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
The time.
It's 9:05.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.